Welcome to the image analysis for toes. We will be reviewing guidelines for common projections of the apiaxial, the medial or internal oblique, and the lateral toe projection. We will also be reviewing common positioning errors and corrective actions. Image analysis guidelines for the apiaxial toe projection state that the midshaft concavity and soft tissue width are equal on both sides of the phalanges. The interphalangeal and metatarsophalangeal joints are open. The phalanges are seen without foreshortening. No soft tissue or bony overlap from the adjacent digits is present. For a single toe projection, the interphalangeal joint for the first toe and the PIP joint for the second through fifth toes are demonstrated at the center of the exposure field. When taking an apiaxial projection of all toes included, the third metatarsophalangeal joint is demonstrated at the center of the exposure field. All phalanges and half of the metatarsals are to be included within the exposure field. Here are those image analysis guidelines for your review. When evaluating an AP toe projection, it's important to assess any rotation. The lateral toe rotation occurs when the toe and foot are rotated outward, meaning away from the midline. In this case, the soft tissue width and midshaft concavity appear greater on the medial side of the toe, which is the side positioned furthest away from the image receptor. Now, on the other hand, with medial toe rotation, this occurs when the toe and foot are rotated inward, meaning towards the midline. Here, the soft tissue width and midshaft concavity are greater on the lateral side, which again is the side furthest from the image receptor. Recognizing these differences is key for identifying rotation and ensuring proper positioning during imaging. I have included a projection of an AP toe image. It is dependent on your hospital's protocol whether or not you will be angling for the AP projection. So make sure you are checking your hospital's protocol to ensure you are obtaining the appropriate toe projection. In this instance, when there is no angulation, the phalanges will appear foreshortened and the joint spaces will be demonstrated as closed. Go ahead and review this image analysis and answer the following question. Let's conduct this practice analysis together. There are two anatomic relationships you want to hone in on when evaluating a apiaxial toe projection, and that is the midshaft concavity and the soft tissue width, okay? You also want to look and check for open joint spaces as well to determine whether your central ray is angulated appropriately. In this case, when looking at the midshaft concavity and soft tissue width, they are not equal. And in this case, the medial side demonstrates an increase of both. And so the toe is rotated laterally. In order to correct this imaging error, we need to medially rotate the foot until the foot and toe are flat against the IR. Go ahead and review this next practice analysis and answer the following question. In looking at this practice analysis, again, we're going to evaluate the midshaft concavity and soft tissue width. It is increased on the lateral surface. This should indicate to you that the toe and foot are medially rotated. In order to take corrective action, we need to laterally rotate that foot until the foot and toe are flat against the IR. Now let's move on to the AP oblique projection. Image analysis guidelines for the AP oblique projection state that the twice as much soft tissue width and more phalangeal concavity are present on the side of the digit rotated away from the IR. The interphalangeal and metatarsal phalangeal joint spaces are demonstrated as open. The phalanges are demonstrated without foreshortening. No soft tissue or bony overlap from the adjacent digits is present. For a single toe image, the IP joint of the first toe and the PIP joint for the second through fifth toes are at the center of the exposure field. For a projection with all toes included, the third MTP joint is at the center of the exposure field. The phalanges and half of the metatarsals are to be included within the exposure field. Here are those guidelines for your review. Now, when reviewing an AP oblique toe projection, it is important to assess the degree of toe obliquity or rotation. When there is insufficient toe obliquity, it's indicated when the mid-shaft concavity of the proximal phalanx and that soft tissue width appear nearly equal on both sides of that toe. This suggests that the toe was not adequately rotated enough. We need to increase obliquity. On the other hand, when there is excessive toe obliquity present, this is where one side of the digit shows more than twice the soft tissue width than of the others. And when the posterior aspect of the proximal phalanx shows significantly more concavity than the anterior aspect. This indicates that the toe was rotated more than that 45 degrees, exceeding that optimal obliquity. Proper evaluation of these anatomic relationships will help ensure that you get a more diagnostic image. We have made it to our first practice analysis. Please review and answer the following question. With toes, we're always going to evaluate the soft tissue width and the mid-shaft concavity. And looking at this and evaluating this projection, the toe soft tissue width and concavity appear to be nearly equal on both sides. Therefore, we are insufficiently oblique. We need to increase that obliquity to that 45 degrees with the IR to ensure we get a true AP oblique projection. Let's move on to our lateral projection of the toe. Image analysis guidelines for the lateral projection of the toe state that the condyles of the proximal phalanx are to be superimposed. There is no soft tissue or bony overlap from the adjacent toes. The interphalangeal joint for the first toe and the PIP joint for the second through fifth toes are at the center of the exposure field. The phalanges and metatarsal phalangeal joint spaces are to be included within the exposure field. Here's another example of proper positioning for a single digit. Here's those image analysis guidelines for your review. Proper rotation is crucial for an accurate lateral toe projection. Rotation errors can be identified by evaluating the position of the proximal phalanx condyles and the metatarsal heads. Insufficient toe rotation is indicated when the condyles of the proximal phalanx are not superimposed and the metatarsal heads appear posterior to the first toe. This means the toe and the foot were not rotated enough to achieve a true lateral position, as in this projection. Now, on the other hand, excessive toe rotation is present when the condyles are, again, not superimposed, but the metatarsal heads are seen superimposing or positioned anterior to the first toe. This indicates that the toe and the foot were rotated more than is necessary for proper lateral projection. Recognizing these little anatomic relationships helps you ensure accurate positioning and optimal diagnostic imaging. Take your time to review this image and answer the following question. Let's conduct this practice analysis together. First, we want to really hone in on our anatomic relationships and looking at the proximal phalanx condyle. It is a little difficult to see because of the adjacent digit overlap, which is an issue here that we will address. However, the condyles are superimposed. Therefore, the positioning is appropriate, but we have too much overlap from the other digits. So we would need to tape down those toes to draw that unaffected toe away, draw the unaffected away from the affected toes and get a true lateral projection without superimposition. Go ahead and review this practice analysis and answer the following question. So when evaluating a lateral toe projection, we want to look at those two special relationships. Are my condyles of that proximal phalanx superimposed, and the position of the metatarsal heads? In this case, the condyles are not superimposed, so we know we have to repeat. And what is the position of the metatarsal heads? They are anterior to the first toe. Therefore, the foot was rotated excessively to achieve this projection. What we need to do is decrease that rotation until that toe is in a lateral projection. Go ahead and assess this image and answer the following question. Let's assess this last image together. Again, we're going to look for superimposition of the proximal phalanx condyles and the position of the metatarsal heads. In this case, the condyles are not superimposed again, and the metatarsal heads are positioned posterior to the first toe. Therefore, the foot was under-rotated. We need to increase foot rotation to get a true lateral projection of the toes. This concludes our image analysis of the toes. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions.